When Dr. Davis invited me to speak, I'm not good with microphones. I'm really loud though, so I might step out from behind this because it kind of freaks me out hearing my voice. When he asked me, this project was just about Death Valley. And since that time, it has grown exponentially. Once we saw the scope of the problem, and I'm not one that can just, I've got to fix it. I could never get involved in childhood hunger because there's always going to be hungry kids. I'm a donkey rescuer and I can solve this problem, okay? So to understand what we're talking about, you have to understand federal protection. In 1971, Congress passed the Wild Horse and Burro Protection Act. Now what that did, it federally protects, it makes it a federal crime to harass or remove wild horses or burros that are federally protected. Now those burros are protected on lands managed by the Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Forestry. They're not protected on national parks, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, native reservations, state-owned lands, things like that. They are not federally protected. There's no difference. They're the same animal, but the animals can't read. They migrate from BLM onto Park Service. They get established. The Park Service says zero tolerance. Now, they don't want to shoot them, but they have the legal authority to use any means necessary to remove them. That's where I come in. I won't bore you with all the details, but if you're interested in reading the Wild Horse and Burro Act, any of the other legislation or policies that are related to this, go to burromanagement.org, and we've got PDFs there on everything. There's also Sanchez 74 on there. Now that is what the Park Service points at when they say why they don't want wild burros. In 1974, a park biologist wrote this report that basically says the donkeys are detrimental out there. So if you ask Park Service why you want them gone, they'll point to Sanchez 74. You can read all about it. Okay. I am in a long procession of people that have tried to do this. Wild burro removal in Death Valley started in 1939 for the first time. It's been done decade after decade. The last time, it was probably around 2004, 2005, they had them all removed at y'all's expense, at taxpayer expense. Then they went broke. They didn't do anything. They turned their back. And now the Park Service estimates there's as many as 2,400 burros just on Death Valley. I've been out there for a year. I don't think it's that high right now. And unfortunately, one of my slides got messed up, but I've got a slide that shows Death Valley, the Mojave National Preserve, Fort Irwin, NASA Goldstone, China Lake Naval Weapons Center. These all have big burro populations. And in between all these are BLM lands where they are protected. They just constantly move, okay? So they had them all removed. They turned their back. And so what I pledge to do with my organization is never turn our back. We're going to continue to go out there. I would rather remove 10 a year than wait 10 years and have to get 10,000 of them, okay? Okay. This is Striped Butte, which you see there in the background. This is Butte Valley, Death Valley, California. It is burro paradise. It is, you can see how green it is. There's 3 really large year-round springs. You can see how beautiful the burros are. And nobody knows they're there because you have to be an avid four-wheel enthusiast to get back there. But they got to go. So this is where we've started the project. We actually started 8 days ago. We've caught 54 as of this morning. BLM up until this time has helped out the Park Service, the Army, the Navy, whoever had burros, the BLM kind of stepped in and helped them. Right now, and I just looked this up last night, they have 46,000 horses. They only have 1,800 burros in storage, but they have 46,000. It's eating up their budget. So they weren't able to come in and assist these other agencies. And it cost them roughly $2,000 each. If you look at the budget that goes against those animals and you divide it out, it's about 2,000 taxpayer dollars each per year. So what I did is once I started figuring out all the problems, I went to this band of characters. This is our board of trustees. And I convinced them to allow me to go from a passive organization where we have to wait to be asked to one that's more aggressive where I can go out and start talking to people. And They believe me. I don't know how I convinced them, but they believe me. So I'm not good with windows. You'll have to forgive me. There we go. So right now, this is our project scope. We are in talks with China Lake. We have not started anything there. We do have a memorandum of understanding with Fort Irwin. We're already catching donkeys on the Mojave National Preserve and, of course, Death Valley. But you can see these are vast tracts of land, and they're all very near each other. So the white strips in there, a lot of that is BLM where they're allowed to be. But they can freely move between all these different areas. Fort Irwin did a study with either, Dr. Davis, did you ever contact the New Mexico University? Was it the University of New Mexico or New Mexico State? I don't know which one, but they did a study with them. And they did population tests. They did a lot of things like that, but they also branded a bunch of them. That's that 65 right there. And they released them north, the north end of Fort Irwin. So that little tiny, way up at top, that's where they released all these burros. That 165, we caught him right here. This is I-40. That many had to go underneath I-15. There was 4 of them with brands. So that just shows how much these burros are moving around this area. Now, besides what we do with the Park Service and the Army, we work along the Mexican border in Arizona. We work on West Texas ranches, and we're talking these vast 25, 30,000 acre ranches where these burros just live. The BLM cell burros. Everybody familiar with the BLM cell program? In a spending bill, they put through a revision to the Wild Horse and Burro Protection Act that says any horse or burro caught that's over 10 years old or has been offered for adoption 3 times unsuccessfully must be sold. Okay? They must be sold. So we go back to the federal protection. Once they get the big U.S. thing, they lose their federal protection. We bought, and because we have, their money has to exchange hands to meet the letter of the law. I want to say close to 700 now. We took in 100 just 4 weeks ago. So we're very active with that. And then we're in talks with Canyonlands National Park and Parashant, which is part of the Grand Canyon. They have burros, but it's under National Park Service, so they've asked us to step in. So why us? Why do I have the audacity to think I could fix what nobody else can? Well, for one thing, I've got the staff to do it. We run about 25 to 30 full-time employees. We are a federally licensed DOT trucking company with 4 transport rigs, each capable of carrying 20 to 30 donkeys each. We've got the money to do it. Now, as a fundraiser, don't let that leave this room. I don't want everybody to know I got it, but my job is to make sure that we're fully funded, and I will not rescue an animal that I can't guarantee its safety for life. So I have the money to start this. I have to keep raising it for next year and the year after and the year after. And then the capacity. I was once asked, what's the most animals we could take in? And I know this sounds outrageous, but it's almost infinite. Our main ranch can hold up to 1,000 donkeys easily. We have 2 transportation hubs that are corporate ran, one in Virginia, one out in Arizona. They could hold probably 400 each. And then we have sanctuaries. And right now, you're going to see, I keep looking back at my wife because she's got a better memory. We have about 20 sanctuaries right now? 19 sanctuaries that right now are housed only about 1,400. We could double that easily, and we can expand because we have more people that want us to lease their land for sanctuary than we have donkeys to put on it. So part of this project is some of these burros aren't ready for domestic life. 2 of them chased my guys out of the pen as they were trying to load them on the trailer. And my guys are professional donkey wranglers, okay? They're aggressive. So what we'll do with them is we'll put them out on sanctuary where they still get health care. They still get the shots, deworming, hoofs trim, and everything else. But in the interim, they think they're wild. They're on usually about 500 acres. And so they still think they're wild. It's a nice transition. So our main facility, San Angelo, Texas, and then we built the 2 transportation hubs. And the key to this project is adoption. I don't want to be the BLM with 50,000 animals in storage. I don't want that. I want to find them homes. And so the key to that is we have over 35 satellite adoption centers across the country. I'm in Southern California up to the Canadian border in Washington. We're just opening another in New England. I think that will be the 5th just in the New England area. We're down at the tip of Florida and all points in between. We can adopt donkeys wherever people want them. We don't adopt many in Texas, but I can adopt donkeys all across the country, and that is key to this whole thing. I threw in a couple aerials of our ranch. Those paddocks each can easily hold 100 donkeys each. The building way out by itself is our quarantine and medical barn that we just finished. And then the bottom right, that's our adoption training area. And way over to the right, that's where we keep all the jacks. They're in a separate grazing field. They're under a different lock. Everything is locked. Only certain people have certain keys. So they're under a different key. So there is nobody's making babies out on our ranch. This particular area where it says geldings and mule, that's the only thing that goes up against the jacks. The Jennies have another area that's fenced on the other side. So no boys and girls getting together on our place. All right, how do we catch them? And that's my corgi bean. He thought he was saving my life there. Bait and water trap is the best and least stressful part of the thing. Basically, we use what's called a finger gate, and they're these long fingers. And we leave them open, we bait inside, they come and go as they please, and slowly we close them. And so they can see their way in, but they can't see their way out. No ropes, no nothing, back a trailer up, away we go. That's our preferred method. Drones, we can do some amazing things with drones now, not just spotting them, but moving them. Mounted Wranglers, and then of course helicopters. Helicopters are not our favorite thing, but on Fort Irwin, we have no choice because there's unexploded ordnance. It's a tank range. And I can't put people out on a tank range around bombs. So we're gonna have to get the donkeys out, and that's the safest way we can do it. We have this website, burromanagement.com, and we can offer a lot of services. Burro health, ecological impact, diversifying the gene pool. A lot of these are very isolated groups. So they're inbreeding and because they started from small gene pools. Nuisance removal, I'll tell you a funny story. I literally was sitting in a room with NASA, and these were some of the smartest individuals I have ever been around in my life. And I was forced into watching an hour-long PowerPoint presentation of everything they did to try to dissuade burros. And it was hysterical. You have all these NASA engineers tying little tinsel on trees. You had them playing low frequency noises and high frequency noises. I mean, it just went on and on. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. And they said, well, what would you have done? I said, I'd put a water trap right there and taken them home. It would have been that simple. They cut down 20 trees. So what did the burros do? They moved into the alcoves of all their doorways and wouldn't move. They couldn't get in or out of the buildings because once the burros realized they weren't going to be hurt, they stood there. It's shady. And not far from NASA, Fort Irwin has a drone runway, and it's unmanned. Well, in the wintertime, that asphalt radiates heat, and so it would be full of burros. So the drones couldn't land. So they had to keep soldiers out there around the clock, and they were under strict orders not to hurt the burros. It got to the point where it would take 4 soldiers per burro to pick them up and carry them off the runway. So there are some burros that are a nuisance. Overall population control is always going to be an issue, and then we have some plans to do some radio collar tracking, just like the one that went down from Irwin to Mojave. I'd like to see their migration patterns. Some of you might remember this gentleman from last year. This is Eric Lundgren. He spoke. He's an ecologist, PhD student. He's heading up our ecology studies. Up until now, the National Park Service would not allow research that did not reinforce their position. With the addition of our organization, we're just going to take a hard look at the science, and that's all. We just want to see realistically what they're doing, what kind of impact they have. And Eric brings up a good point. I love Death Valley, one of my favorite places to be. And there's a lot more water in Death Valley than people would think. But it's covered in vegetation. You'll see a tree and all these reeds, and you can't see the water unless you have a thriving burro population. They will tunnel into that and get to the water. Well, then that tunnel can be used for bighorn sheep. Squirrels, raccoons, coyotes, everybody can benefit. Remove the burros, no access to the water. So these are the things we're going to look at. So the positives and the negative. And something else that you can't help but look at is the burros have been out there for over 100 years. This is a constantly evolving ecosystem out there. So for the last 100 years, we brought in a big herbivore. Well, the plants, animals, the birds, the trees, the coyotes, everything is adapted over the last 100 years. So what happens when now all the burros, one of the biggest animal out there, is removed? What's going to happen? It's nobody knows. I mean, it's detrimental. But anyway, we're going to study, and we'll be able to share all those results with you. And you might recognize this gentleman. I stole that off your Facebook page, I think. And I always like putting all those initials after his name. I have no idea what it means, but that's pretty impressive. But we have license. We're doing a lot of blood type work. There's just untold things that we can do that's just never been done because there's never been an interest. There's never been money for it. So, for instance, as we're drawing blood for the Coggins that we have to get before we can move them out of the state, we're taking extra blood. Okay, so what happens? We got to catch them. Now, right now on the Mojave Preserve, we've only caught 13, but those are kind of catch as catch can. We're not putting the full court press down there. We started catching Death Valley a week ago Friday, and we've caught 54 as of this morning. We expect to get at least another 50 in the next week before we pull out of that area. So we got to transport them to a staging area. We have a staging area set up at Furnace Creek, if y'all are familiar at all with Death Valley. And we have another one set up in Barstow. So they have to go there, they get identified. Now what we do is we use a subcutaneous microchip in the neck. We use an RFID ear tag button because you can physically look at it and see the number. And then we use a freeze brand. And our freeze band is a simple PV. All my senior staff got them. We're in solidarity. But we never sell our donkeys. They always belong to us. And we don't want to see our donkeys get sold down the road and eventually end up in an auction or worse. So that's why they're branded. So we do the blood work, we get the paperwork, and we transport. The Jennies and foals, for the most part, are going to stay out in the western region of our organization. The Jacks will get moved to San Angelo. Twice per year we do castrations with Texas A&M fourth-year vet students. They're actually coming out next week. This coming week. And so we always do it in the cooler months, so we do it in the fall and in the spring. So the ones that are sitting out here now, they won't get cut till the spring, but that's all right. That'd be a lot of stress to be captured, to be transported, and then to be cut on, so we'll give them time to acclimate. We do castrate everything. Unless it's a really, really, really old jack, then we have a special place that we can put them where they can just live out their lives. But other than that, we cut them all. As I said, adoption is really, really crucial. So all of our burros are trained. They'll accept a halter, they'll walk on lead, they'll pick up their feet. We have a big training staff that works with them. We use a grading system, A through F. And it's just, I don't want to adopt a wild animal with somebody, then they're not going to touch it, and then it's going to get even wilder, and it's not going to be able to have its hooves done. The biggest thing we find on animal cruelty side is overgrown hooves, because people don't work with them. It's not automatic like with horses where you work with your horse every day. People don't do it, they're afraid of donkeys. So we want to make sure that we give you a big pet. So the training is crucial. Adoption, as we talked about, and then the ones that aren't suitable for adoption will go to sanctuary for a while. And we evaluate those donkeys regularly. They get looked at least 4 times a year by our staff, and then we have other people that look in them on the in-between. But they get reevaluated to see if maybe they're ready to come in and go through training. They get regular vaccines, they get regular deworming. We do a lot of fecal studies. we do before and after, before to see what we're treating, after to make sure we treated it. And we do that not only on the ranch, but on all our sanctuaries. Our sanctuaries actually range from West Texas all the way into Louisiana. This is Zach. He's the one who keeps up with the donkeys. He has a degree in range management, so he can check the health of the range, make sure we're not overgrazing any particular one. But he gives the donkeys a sense of freedom. And they kind of make that transition from being wild to understanding a little bit more about domestic life while they're out there. And you can tell from this picture, he's got a portable chute, and he is trimming that donkey literally in the middle of a sanctuary. He's not in a corral. And I brought up that $2,000 a year for the BLM spends of y'all's money. It costs us $200 a year to keep these donkeys out on sanctuary. And that's with full medical care, that's with supervision, that's with everything we do. And that's all donor money. Because I don't know if I mentioned, we don't take government money. Even if it was available, I wouldn't take it. Okay, so here's my project cost. Let's get back to the fact that I'm a professional fundraiser. This is expensive. There's nothing about it that isn't expensive. I can tell you it cost $1,000 for me to rescue a donkey. That's what it cost. So if we go out and do a 50 donkey rescue from some hoarder, that's $50,000. Just what it is. That's transportation, that's medical, that's identification, that's feeding it, that's training it, whatever, that's $1,000. I know that because I've done it over 10,000 times. Catching a donkey is a different story. It might cost us $200 in a contractor's time to catch it, or $2,000. And it all depends on what stage of the program we're in. In the early, right now, you go to Butte Valley, there was 100 donkeys out there. They're plentiful. We go out for the next round, there's going to be there might only be 20, and they're going to be a lot more spread out. So it's a lot more expensive, a lot more labor intensive to bring them in. So we averaged $15 million over the next 10 years. It's a lot of money. Quarantine, and this kind of takes care of all the processing, the vaccines, the deworming, everything that goes into us holding them. The transportation we talked about, we move these things all around the country. The training, the feeding, because again, we have staff involved, castrations, advertising. So so if you look at it, it's about $2.7 million per year for the next 10 years, and that is only the Wild Burro program. That's not all the other domestic rescues that we do all across the country, all the law enforcement work we do. Our plate was full before I took all this on, or convinced my trustees to let me take all this on. So this is additional funds that we're going to have to go out and raise. So what can you do? If you're in this room, you obviously appreciate donkeys. That's not my problem, that's our problem. All of our problems. They built the country. I think they deserve better than what they're getting. So you can donate early and often. You can advocate. Probably half my job is just talking to people about how cool donkeys are, what they've contributed to our society, what their personalities are like, everything. Let's make some more donkey lovers out there. Volunteer. There's a lot of ways you can volunteer. Like I said, we're all across the country, so wherever you are, chances are I've got a satellite adoption center near you where you go help out. You could become a satellite adoption center yourself. If you have some room, it's a really cool program. You take about 10 of our donkeys at a time. You use our rules, our applications. We cover the feed, all the expense while it's with you, and we can move a lot more donkeys. The more facilities we have, the more communities we can get into, the more donkeys we can move through. You can sponsor. As we talked about the ones that are going out on sanctuary, we have a sponsorship program where you can sponsor one of those guys out there. And then, of course, you can adopt. Again, early and often. How many you want? We all know about the hide trade. I don't know if anybody really covered it here, but it's completely unsustainable. Let's just say the government numbers are right. And just for Fort Irwin, China Lake, and Death Valley, the number's over 10,000 burros. That's their numbers, not mine. That's what they told me. Might not a solution be to sell those things to China? And might not somebody at some point think and put those dots together? So that's why I'm involved now, before it gets to that point. That's terrible. So that's it.